Hello. Wow, it has been so long since I've done an Instagram Live. Part of me is like, do I even remember how to do this? I'm so used to recording podcasts or audios in Telegram. So I'm like a wild feral animal back on Instagram Live. I want to jump right into today's topic because I'm feeling so much passion around this topic right now, as it's something that I have journeyed with so intimately in the past several years and many times in smaller ways throughout my decade in business. And I know that a lot of my clients have been moving through this. I have friends and colleagues and other people that I see in my particular industry of like the coaching industry at large, but knowing that there's sub-industries within. But I know plenty of people who have experienced income dips and financial contraction, lower sales, less money flow, like anything you want to label around the topic. We're talking about that today. I want to share some really powerful perspective shifts and how I've moved through it, how I support my clients through it, and just hopefully you can walk away from this live feeling like you have a different relationship to the income dip, the financial contraction. A couple of caveats. Obviously, whoever you are watching this, you'll be able to receive something from it, but just know that like I'm going to be intentionally aiming this at female entrepreneurs and women who are in business, especially women who have already made money in their businesses and feel like they achieved a level of success and then started making less money for a period of time, because there's a whole fucking thing that comes when you have made a certain amount of money and then dropped below it, which is what we're talking about. We're talking about income dips or plateaus or contraction years where you kind of have this whole identity that can form around making a certain amount of money, and then whether it's days, weeks, months, or years, specifically talking about, longer periods of time where there's less money flow, where there's less sales, it can really erode at your confidence. But again, whether you're in a 9-to-5 or you're new in business, or you're just like, I've never even reached an amount of money that I've dipped below, I'm in your business, maybe you've had a steady job and that's one thing, but we're talking about business and being an entrepreneur, because that requires a deep level of self-belief. So when you are making your own money in your own business, promoting products or services or offers that are meaningful to you, that you stand for, that you have passion for, there's a level of intimacy and vulnerability that already comes established with that, because it's so much easier to sell someone else's stuff. It's so much easier to just show up in a job and while it's boring and uncomfortable and it has its own challenges, it is comfortable. It's comfortable and safe to just show up and be a part of someone else's world, but to take a stand for something that you have journeyed with, whether it's your health, your sexuality, your own money, parenting, a specific thing with your health, or whatever it be, right? There's something that's on your heart that you have walked through, that you have experienced your own results in, and now you're packaging it up and offering that journey, that transformation, those results, that experience, those perspective shifts to someone else. Or there's a product that you have created or discovered that you fucking stand behind, and there's something that you believe in, that you stand for, that you advocate for, that has been put in your heart for you to be a spokesperson for by the divine, by your own soul, by your eros, whatever you want to frame it as, right? Like the divine has given you this particular message to spread. So there is a level of vulnerability that already comes with being like, here's my fucking heart on a platter, pay for this and I will help you experience this. So there's that. And then, you're making your own money, right? Which can also be vulnerable. I didn't come from money. So when I started my business, there was a whole journey of learning to make money. And we have attached so much meaning, which I believe we're just going to call them contraction years, income dips. Know that we're just talking about any time where you were making this much money and now you're making this much money, or not any money at all. I've had so many conversations with women recently who have been experiencing things like this, and it brings so much shame and so much guilt and so much pain because we have been conditioned to associate like our level of safety and security is attached to things that are external outside of us, right? So if I have a high month, yay, I'm all good, I'm secure. But if I have a low month, then I feel insecure, I don't feel safe. So we're gonna talk about that because that's one of the greatest lessons that I feel like an income dip actually helps you do, is to separate your value and your worth and what you deserve, and all of that gets completely detached from like external results, from anything that you could produce. And I feel like this world, at least in the Western world, it's very much based on like your production, trading hours for dollars. It's very transactional in that sense of like, I work hard enough, then I receive a reward of being paid. The more I produce, the more I work, the more I can receive. Sometimes not. Sometimes you're encouraged to work more for very little pay, which is why so many women actually undercharge and under-earn, because especially for women who, you know, we were considered a form of property and currency for many years. I mean, it wasn't even until like, 1980 something, or maybe 1980, I don't remember the exact year, where women were allowed to even have their own bank account or credit card without having their husband or father as a co-signer. So that's a fact I always like to share, because I want us to keep in perspective that you're not bad and you're responsible with money. You're probably doing a lot better than you are, but this shit is deeply ingrained in us. Money brings so much shame in general. And then you add on this level of, okay, I'm an entrepreneur, I make my own money, I'm crushing it, I'm killing it, I'm making so much money, and all of a sudden, it comes to a screeching halt, and you're experiencing, you know, for a lot of women that I've been speaking to, the income dips aren't just like, oh, I had a low month. It's like a low year, a low 2 years. Like, it's kind of extended. And no matter how long your income dip or your plateau or your like lack of sales, or maybe you're just making less and less money, whatever it is, no matter how long it lasts, everything I'm going to speak to today, I believe will serve you. But again, I wanted to preface that I really want to speak to the women who were making a certain amount of money that, especially in the coaching industry, really glorifies and glamorizes. You know, for me, I had 2 6-figure years, and then last year was an income dip for me. I made like between $60,000 and $70,000. Now, in hindsight, obviously for some of you, you're like, I would love to make that much money in my business. And so I had to journey with a lot of shame and guilt of like, what does this mean about me? What does this mean about my work? And if your work, your tools, your body of work, the movement that you stand for, even if you're like, I don't have a body of work, I don't have a movement, like, this is all about how you see yourself, right? But there's something that you teach your clients, that you walk them through, that maybe you even teach in courses or whatever it be, right? Like, it's the stuff, it's the tools that you do every single day that you now teach to others. That's your work. That's the stuff that you stand for. That's what helped you get from wherever you were in your journey to where you are now and everything. But what I was going to say, let me just kind of feel into this, because there's just so much that my heart is like wanting to speak to, but I also just want to get to the heart of the matter, which is that the shame that comes with making a certain amount of money and really over-identifying with that amount of money, making it mean something about us. And I absolutely did this when I started making 6 figures. It's like it became my whole fucking personality. And I love that version of me who was looking for validation, who thought I finally made it. But you know what also happened is I got to 6 figures and it was like, oh, now we're making $1 million a year. Now we're making multi-million dollars a year. There's people making $1 million a month. What you've made is not enough. And this is all about like, we have to be super discerning, which is another gift that comes with this income dip, this void, this time of, okay, I'm making less money, I'm experiencing contraction. All of my shadows are fucking coming up. I'm feeling so much shame. And I'd love to know if you can relate to any of this. Just put in the chat, I relate, or, you know, me, whatever. But there are so many gifts that come with this time, but it's deeply uncomfortable. It's deeply, deeply, deeply uncomfortable because we have to look at in these times where things are not going how we want anymore. And we were up here and now we feel lower than fucking low. We feel like scum. Why? Because we've taken on this conditioning. We've given our power away to the coaching industry, to a specific coach, to money, to status, to like all the things outside of us, right? These things that can confirm that we're good enough, that can confirm that we deserve this, confirm that we're meant for it. So something that happened a lot for me, and I've also seen this reflected with clients and friends and colleagues also going through similar journeys with contractions and making less money at times, and the income dips and this like void where it's like everything that was working before, the things that were making you money, the signature courses that were selling like hotcakes, that now it's like crickets, or things just aren't working and flowing the way that they used to, and you're just like, what the fuck is happening, right? Is journeying through all of that shame, all of that pain, all of that discomfort of seeing where I had basically outsourced my power to a certain amount of money, outsourced my power to an identity that came with that, outsourced my power to being seen a certain way. All the ways in which I had given my power away and said, I'm only happy and powerful and worthy and wealthy and safe when I'm making a certain amount of money. So what happens when my income dipped? All of a sudden, I don't feel happy, I don't feel wealthy, I don't feel safe, I don't feel worthy, I don't feel like all the things I was feeling when I was riding high, which we don't want that to be true. Now, obviously, as a sex and money mentor, I love money. I love working with money. And for me, it's all about having a sexy and secure attachment with money, but that comes from having that with ourselves. It's all about creating safety with money. We're allowed to desire money. We're allowed to want fuck tons of money. But the second that money has power over you, the second that money means more, like it has a meaning that if you don't have the money, if the money isn't flowing, that it means something bad or wrong about you. If the money not flowing the way that you want it to brings you shame, that's where you want to come into right relationship with your inner security and safety. So I'm going to share a couple of lessons that want to be shared from my heart to you around this time. Now, for me, the income dip really turned into this deep void. So I'm going to share just a little bit about what I experienced. So I would say that the way that I was primarily running my business the past several years was doing primarily I would say 75% of my income was coming from masterminds, which, intimate masterminds, my Mary Magdalene Sex Priestess container, and I would have usually one high paying one-on-one client, sometimes two, but usually just one. And then group coaching, containers, and digital courses and masterclasses, but those were smaller in terms of most of my money was coming from the masterminds. Now, I'm also a mom. My daughter will be 6, but last year and the year before, she was 4 and 5. That was a really intense time for me. I had a lot of trauma that was coming up from my own childhood that was being kind of mirrored to me, and I was also fucking exhausted and burned out from running my business the way that I was, because I'm not blaming any of the coaches that I worked with, but they tend to work really well with a lot of clients, and I do not work well with a full calendar. I actually love a lot of freedom, a lot of alone time, a lot of spaciousness. I don't want to have 20 one-on-one clients. I don't want to have calls all day, every day. But I was starting to run my business that way because that's how she got to 1 million. That's how she got here, right? That's how they got here. So there was still a part of me that was looking for this answer. They know better than me. I wasn't really trusting myself. I wasn't really listening to what my body was telling me, what my soul was telling me. And I believe that this whole income dip void that I experienced was kind of like a soul and divine intervention of all right, we're just going to clear this stuff away so that you can get to the truth of what's right for you. So I would say about a year ago. I think it was in August. I was finishing up a live container of my Sexy Money Codes program, which now I sell as a digital program. And it's like my signature program. I'm obsessed with it. But at the time I was teaching it as a group coaching program, and then I had masterminds and like all these things. So my body starts telling me to cut all of this away. And I was just like, you want me to stop doing the things that have always worked, that have always made me money, but things started to not work anymore. People weren't signing up for things as much because I would secretly be thinking, oh, I just want to do it this way. I just want to like, you know, create a funnel and have it be really easy. But then I would turn around and try to sell a fucking like 6-month mastermind. I wasn't really listening to myself. I was getting these intuitive nudges to do things in an easier way, but then I was still choosing the hard way because that's what I thought I had to do. Because I also had this story that because I had held so many clients so deeply for so long, that the only way people were going to get transformation was if I was personally holding their fucking hand and coaching them. And so something that has also come through for me with this dip is really understanding my methodologies and my frameworks, and the work that I teach is what helps people. Of course, I value coaching and mentorship. Of course, there's something that happens when you're in the room with someone or you get, you know, that personal access to them. I'm not denying that, but women have been getting results and do get results just from my curriculum when it's designed in a very intentional way. But I still have this belief of like, I have to deeply hold and support women. And so obviously spending hours a day holding women in deep, intensive rituals around two of the most triggering topics, money and sex, I started to burn out. And I kept trying to reach for, it's like, you know, that favorite old sweater that you've had since childhood that like really doesn't fit anymore, but you're like, I'm gonna squeeze into it. It's got holes. It's like practically about to explode from being so dusty and old. It smells like mothballs, but you're like, it's so comfortable and familiar. Like, let me just put it on one more time. Let me just squeeze into this thing one more time because it's so cozy and familiar. It's just not working, right? You don't feel like yourself because the self that's coming through is that next level version of you. And it's not some version of you outside. It's your soul being like, hey, go within, descend down within to this version, and then let her blossom out and open. Like, go within to become her because she's already there inside of you. So anytime I talk about becoming like your next level self or anything like that, it's not about going and becoming someone new outside of you. It's already there inside. And usually we have to tease away all the conditioning to just be who we are. Yes, you express yourself more. Yes, you can, you know, externally reflect things more through like fashion and changing your hair and like, you know, shit like that. But anyways, let me jump into some of these pieces before this gets too long. So the first thing that came through, actually, let me finish my story. Sorry, I'm a little all over the place. Like I just ovulated and my brain is just like, bing, 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 bing. So I ended up closing all those containers and something funny happened. My brain was like, you're going to open a 9-month high priestess mastermind. And I almost launched this. And I was just like, what the fuck am I doing? I'm still not listening. Like I'm still not listening. And things were just no longer flowing and feeling easy. And honestly, all of last year, it felt like doors were just closing and slamming in my face. It felt like everything was just total shit. And even a little bit this year, still, I feel like I'm, you know, moving through the tail end of that. There's a lot more flow and momentum now than there was before. And I've never felt more clear in my movement and in my body of work. But I changed my entire business model a year ago. I stopped taking private clients except for occasionally like, you know, a 2-week or a 1-month Telegram client. I still have one client that I'm finishing up with, but she'll be done by the next few months because we were doing a level 2 Mary Magdalene sex priestess together. But I basically have spent the past year coasting and leveraging courses I've already created and a couple of new things that I've created, of course. But I spent a lot of that time feeling very uninspired, feeling very turned off and disconnected, questioning whether my work worked anymore, even though it's the same work I always turn to. It's the work that I do in my everyday life. Like, I can't not do these tools. I can't not live by these principles and philosophies. But one of the first things that happens when you stop making money, especially if you teach these tools to people and you associated like, okay, I'm teaching these, people are responding, it's working, I'm getting lots of sales and money. When the sales and money stop flowing, we start to question whether our work works anymore, whether people want it, whether it's good enough, whether we're meant for it, whether we're really cut out for it. So you're really going to start attacking your own character. That is one of the most vicious parts about being in this really uncomfortable space, this void, this place where what was working is no longer working, but you're still kind of looking in that rear view mirror, being like, but it worked in the past. This is how it was in the past. And you're trying to go back and recreate that because it's familiar and safe and comfortable. And it's really uncomfortable to look forward. In this analogy of the car, imagine that it's completely dark outside. You're in the car and your headlights can only see a foot in front of you. These are really shitty headlights in this, but they're divinely designed. Obviously, if you're driving a real car, we want your headlights to go way further than 1 foot. But in this example, I want you to imagine that by divine design of this void, of this dip, of this contraction, whatever the fuck you want to call it, you are only able to see immediately what is right in front of you, which is really what you're here to be present with, right? You're not able to see 6 feet ahead, 6 miles ahead. And so it can be scary to continue moving forward when it's darkness, 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 darkness. But it takes a very embodied and powerful level of confidence and just power and strength and resiliency to be willing to continue moving forward when you can't really see that far ahead of what's here. So when you're in that space, your ego is going to attack the fuck out of you. It is going to make you question everything about yourself. It is going to make you question whether you're good enough, whether you're too much, whether you're worthy enough, whether you really are cut out for it. You're going to start feeling that friction, that rub up against the hardness. I know that sounds really sexy in this example, not so sexy, because it's like, why does everything all of a sudden feel so fucking hard? Like I'm working so hard and getting no results. There's no momentum. There's no anything. It just feels like I'm in this molasses suspended in time. So the first thing I want to say is that this time of the income dip, no matter how long it lasts for you, is about recalibration, not regression. Oftentimes what happens when we have an income dip, whether for you it was just 1 month long, or it was a year long, or it was multiple years long, or it's been longer than that, or whatever, is we think I've regressed. I'm being punished. Something is bad or wrong. There's something in me that needs to be fixed or healed before I get to have more. We immediately start going into, what did I do wrong? This is a regression. I'm going backwards. But the piece I want to invite you into is that this is a recalibration. This is a period of stabilization. Because, and I say this with so much love because there are people that I genuinely love to learn from, that I respect, who teach this, but I've had to discern that it actually does not serve me. This belief, this affirmation, whatever you want to call it, doesn't serve me. And it was inspiring for a while, but it upholds too much perfection for me. But this idea that when you hit a new income level, you're never going to dip below it, to me is just... it just does not make space for the mystery. It doesn't make space for the life, death, rebirth cycles. Like, I'm also a priestess and a witch as much as I am like a leader and a woman teaching sex and money. Like, I am very deeply in tune with the seasons and cycles, with nature, with life, death, sex, rebirth. And this initiation portal rite of passage that was the income dip, which lasted a very long time for me, still coming out of it, taught me about these cycles, that we need to let things die away so that we can be rebirthed into something even better, that old version of us could have never held the identity, the belief, the idea that we could be this big, that you could be this big, that you could be meant for something so much bigger that you can't even conceive it from that old place. So this is a recalibration, not a regression. You have not gone backwards. You are not being held back. It's not like God or Goddess has you by the back of your pants and you're like trying to scramble forward and they're just like, ha 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 ha, got you by your pants. No, it's not like that. You're not being held back. But sometimes there is a stillness. There is a peace. There is a sit still. And I don't mean necessarily like meditate, unless that's your thing. For me, it was be present with what's here. Because sometimes when we've reached a certain amount of money, and this is what happened for me, which is why I believe that this income dip and void was so beneficial for me, and I'm grateful for it, and I no longer fear it happening again, is because I see the potency of it. I see the medicine of it. I see what it was creating and allowing me to rebirth into, and I see the value of it. Because our patriarchal, production-based society does not appreciate these feminine cycles. It doesn't appreciate things like death and rebirth, and it doesn't appreciate things decaying. It doesn't appreciate shedding the skin. It doesn't appreciate slowness and stillness and being present. And like, think about eating like the juiciest peach out in the sun, like naked. Like, imagine eating it for 20 minutes. Our society does not value experiences like that. Our society does not value slowness, leisure, pleasure, relaxation. Like, we are expected to work, make more money. And honestly, I feel like this is a little bit why the whole like soft life trend is starting to take over, is because women are fucking exhausted. We have been trapped in 24/7 survival mode for most of our lives for many different reasons. And then when we become entrepreneurs and business owners, we have to learn how to make our own money. And because most of us get kind of introduced to business through very like what you might consider masculine methods, where it's like bro marketing strategies and things that are just really don't honor your cycles, the seasons, your body, your pleasure, like really anything that, you know, we value here in my world as women. It's very much like high performance, keep churning it out, keep moving, keep investing more. Like, there's really no room and space for like the body, the intuition, the eros, like pleasure, slowness, stillness, just like that kind of energy, right? It's very much like keep going, keep moving, don't slow down. And I also believe that like the coaching industry has a massive flight response. Like, they are in massive avoidance, because I'm very curious about some of these high-powered women who are making millions, and I don't wish terrible things on them at all, but I feel like I can see a lot of women avoiding these dips. So they're like, I need to make more money. I make more money, because they are deeply in avoidance and fleeing from. It's a massive trauma and survival response, where if something like this was to happen, whether yours is, I mean, you might even be watching this and be like, well, you know, maybe the income didn't slow down, but I could not get out of bed and work, or I had a health crisis, or I ended up in the hospital, like whatever your version is, right? Where it's like there was some kind of divine intervention where you are being asked to slow the fuck down. You're not being punished and told sit the fuck down and shut the fuck up and your desires don't matter. No, that's not what you're being told. You're being invited to slow the fuck down, because I know that you didn't sign up for your own business to just produce and not actually feel safe. So the first piece, like I said, this income dip, this portal, it is a portal, it is an initiation, it is a rite of passage. And again, our society does not see these ups and downs, these moments of contraction as necessary or as potent or as valuable, which also goes to show that we don't really value, like they don't value women, they don't value cycles, they don't value nature, they don't value the feminine, like because you're just meant to hit an income level and either sustain it or keep growing. Sustain, keep growing, and it is fucking exhausted, and it's keeping so many women exhausted, launching back to back, doing things they don't want to do until they reach a point where all of a sudden the money and sales stop flowing. Things that were working no longer work. And they're kind of thrust into this deep portal of time where there's an income dip, where things are no longer working. And they think that they're regressing, that they're going backwards, that something's wrong. They're not cut out for this journey. And I've seen many women walk away from their purpose, from their movement, because we're not taught and trained how to hold these fucking rites of passage. And entrepreneurship to me, I mean, I've been on so many journeys, and I'm sure you have as well, right? With my health, with my body, with beauty, with money, with motherhood, with my relationship, with my sexuality, with like business. And entrepreneur is a whole journey. It is a soul journey. So it can be really intense. And some people get into business for themselves and realize this isn't for me. But the women that I'm speaking to, you are meant for this. But because our society doesn't value seasons and cycles, because you're expected to always be in expansion, you're expected to always be high vibe, you're expected to always be on and like in success constantly. It's like going to a retreat and feeling so good and then expecting that to last forever. You can work the tools that you learned at the retreat every day for the rest of your life, but you're not going to always feel ecstasy and on top of the world. Now, I'm not saying you have to feel miserable, but we're human and we feel things. And for my clients who do work with me, students and clients who do work with me around the erotic, eros is aliveness. Eros is not just ecstasy and orgasms, that's part of it, but it's also grief, it's death, it's loss, it's pain, it's everything. Every emotion, every feeling, every sensation exists on a spectrum, and it's all part of being alive. And when you numb one thing, you numb everything. So remember that whatever time you experienced or you are experiencing, whether you're still in it, it is a recalibration, not a regression. And the second piece, which I've kind of already said, is you are not being punished. You are being positioned. You are being positioned for something that is so much bigger than you are willing to let yourself see. So when you're in these income dips, oftentimes it's because you've gotten a little comfortable. You've gotten a little comfortable with using the things that always worked. You're playing it safe. There might even be part of you that's controlling of like, okay, 6 months from now, we're going to launch this thing. Last year, it was it made 6 figures or it made 20K a month. We're going to do it again. We're going to do it again. And you are being not punished in this dip, this void, whatever you want to call it. You're being positioned. You're being positioned for something that's even deeper and wider in terms of both your service and your impact, but also your receptivity, your ability to receive. And this is something that I have really landed with because I now realize, being mostly on the other side of this void. I was in this void for like 18 months and it's had different waves and different iterations. But what I really learned earlier this year is I ended up in a container that was about a membership, but the way that she taught the membership was that this is a movement. This is something that's meant to be here really big, like 7 figures big, impacting people's lives forever big, a legacy level big. Like this is what you are bringing into the world. Isn't just a membership. It's not just some subscription, like your lowest charging subscription that people get access to your work for the lowest cost. She was like, no, this is you giving people access to a body of work that they can bring into their lifestyle, a movement and something that this movement stands for that people can say, hey, I stand for this too. So let's work towards this together as a collective. And I would have never been able to hold that perspective pre-income dips, pre-void, like this just fucking mystery school of money not flowing well for me. I could have never held the fact that little old me was here to lead a global movement, which is so interesting because I know that my business has been global from the very beginning. I have clients and students all over the world. I built a YouTube channel that probably would be a lot bigger now if it hadn't been deleted by YouTube, but it was at 38,000 subscribers in 2020 when they deleted it for, they were cracking down on any sex-related content, and unfortunately I was a casualty of that, even though it was just educational, like me speaking right now. My podcast has over 100,000 downloads. At one point I had, teachers from all over that were speaking on the podcast in the very beginning years. Like, shout out to 2015, 2016 Amber, who had the fucking lady balls to invite experts onto my podcast. But it's like, when you are in this space, you're not being punished, you're not being knocked down, you're not being told that you're not worthy or meant for this. You are being positioned for something that requires your identity, your inner character, your personal power within to be strengthened, to be positioned in a very specific way that you can hold what's coming. And so that's the next piece, right? Is because I do so much embodiment and somatic work with my clients, it's really about, for me, I was looking at okay, what is my body holding on to during this income dip? Holding on to stress, holding on to old patterns, holding on to old relationships, holding on to old beliefs, holding on to all kinds of things. And that gets literally in holding patterns in your body, your shoulders, your neck, everywhere, your pelvic floor. So for me, it was a lot about softening and opening my body, coming into this receptive kind of physically in my body, and giving myself a lot of time to just rest and be present with what was here, because I'm coming into this position and posture of power in my body. How would I hold my body posture? How would I breathe? How would I move? How would I speak? If I was speaking from the version of myself that's on the other side of this dip, the version of myself that this dip is inviting me to become, this dip is inviting you to become. And I know that can be frustrating because you've done a lot of identity work, you've done all the tools, you've been working on yourself for a lot of time, and you are so fucking powerful already that you can just be what the fuck is it now? Logically you can think you're there, but your body and your soul might have a little bit more to kind of calibrate to and to step into. So the next piece that I want to mention is coming into right relationship with the unknown. So, I am an advocate, obviously, for women creating stable, steady, consistent income. I teach it in my Sexy Money Codes program. It's something that deeply helped me as someone who comes from a background of intense feast or famine cycles. And sometimes our clinging and our attachment to how much money we think we need to make every month is actually harming us more than it's doing good. Sometimes it's coming from a place of, I have to make this much money or else it means this about me. I have to make this much money because it gives us a false sense of control and a false sense of safety and a false sense of power. Because if you're okay, well, I sold this mastermind and now I've got 10K months, 20K months on lock, not only is it satisfying a part of our ego that really identifies with being seen at that level, but it's also okay, there's a false sense of safety. There's a false sense of control, right? Because when we're in the unknown, when you have no idea where your next income is coming from, where your next sale is coming from, when things are breaking down around you, where you are breaking down within to come through that breakthrough, and you're I am still in it, we are constantly clinging and seeking for any semblance of control, Because again, the unknown, the void, the mystery, all these things that you can put within like the erotic and the unconscious and the feminine, whatever, right, have not been valued by society. It's like really in connection with our soul. We don't really value soul work as a society. Now, obviously in the personal development world, we do, but we're like, yeah, if this soul work is leading to money, this soul work is leading to clients. But it's like when you're in the dark night of the soul and it feels like the dark night is every fucking night for months or years on end, it can feel really uncomfortable, right? And we can look for any semblance of something to give us that false sense of safety and control. And this is where we come into a right relationship with the unknown and we actually detach. There's a difference between internal power and external power, right? Like we're an internal safety and external safety, false safety and real safety, and security and power. The false and external based safety and power is very, like, it fluctuates, right? And it is determined based on those external factors. It's based on the circumstances essentially going your way. And so it goes like this. It wavers. And when you can resource that power and that safety and that worthiness from within, no matter what is going on with your income, no matter what is going on outside of you, but you know that you've got you and you feel safe, it's like, yeah, things can be going like this outside of you, but you feel steady. You feel regulated. You are unwavering in your power. And we're human, so we're obviously going to have these moments where we don't feel powerful, we don't feel safe, but it's like more often than not, if you're in this space of like, okay, I'm in my internal power. I'm in my internal sense of safety and security. It's not something that's fleeting. It's not something that like, oh, I'm safe and powerful when I have a 10K month or a 100K month, but then I'm this worthless piece of shit and I'm not safe and I'm not powerful if you drop down to 0 or 10K or whatever your dip is, right? So coming into right relationship with the unknown is understanding that this space is a fertile void. It is like a womb that is incubating you and transmuting all of that old shit that you thought you needed to carry. So all the things that probably got you to that first level of success or that second level of success, like for me, all the things that got me to 6 figures were a lot of the things that I actually had to let go in order for me to move towards multiple 6 figures or $1 million now. Like I just remember receiving that message because a lot of those things were still rooted in the coaching industry or what that person is doing or what I think will get me validation, what will keep me in love, safety, and belonging. And we can honor that, right? We can honor those past version of ourselves that, you know, kind of had those things were serving us until they no longer did. And so having a right relationship with the unknown means having a right relationship with seasons and cycles, having a right relationship with change, having a right relationship with feeling safe to fully surrender and trust these cycles and seasons that not only exist in our bodies, but exist in nature. And so the unknown is this place where the magic comes alive if you're willing to listen, if you're willing to surrender into it. And I know that it's not the sexiest thing. I know that it can feel scary because you are used to having your security and your safety based on something that is outside of you, based on something that has been an illusion that has really seductively convinced you that it is solid and safe, but actually is not stable or solid or secure, right? Because the only thing that's truly solid and stable and secure is safety that's sourced from within you, power that's sourced from within you, not sourcing it from, oh, I had like such a good day, or I had an orgasm today, or I signed 3 clients today. If the next day you have none of that and you feel like shit, it's just not you being fully in your power. So right relationship with the unknown, and internal power versus external power. And again, we are detaching our happiness, our safety, our aliveness, our worthiness from anything outside of us. Because even recently, I've still noticed that there are parts of me that are like, oh, people will hire me and people will value me and people will see me and I'll have love and safety and belonging, and it means I'm worthy and it means I'm successful if I'm making a certain amount of money, if I have a certain amount of sales. And it's like, no, I need to completely detach that, because money started to feel very serious. It felt so hard and heavy and serious, and it felt like such a responsibility. And I've had to do a lot of work around like redefining responsibility and what that means, and like what I was holding before and what I'm being asked to hold now. But what you're being asked to hold after the income dip is so much lighter and so much sexier and more pleasurable. You are not being asked to hold things that are hard and heavy. That's the old way. That might be who you were pre-dip, contraction, void, right? So the piece that I want to speak to again is the shame. The shame, like, I honestly would love to know how many women, and if you're watching this and you want to just send me a DM sharing with me, because I have someone that has been very open and receptive to people telling me about their shame for many years, because I have walked and journeyed and danced with my own shame around money, around sex, around business, around so many fucking things for so many years, that people do feel comfortable sharing their shame with me. So if you're like, okay, I have a story, I've been hiding, I've been feeling shame, blah, 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 around your business, your money, feel free to just DM me. Like, there's nothing I'm going to pitch you, but just like having a space to drop it is so important. If you have a mentor, if you have a friend, if you have a space, because there are so many women who are in the coaching industry, who are in the online business and entrepreneurship world right now, who are suffering silently and actually dimming their light because of the shame that they're not keeping up at a certain income level, or that their income dropped, or they stopped making sales, or something happened and their business took a turn, like whatever your version of that is, right? Or that you've had to rely on a partner or a parent, or cut things from your expenses, or let go of team, or whatever it is, right? Like we cannot be having shame run our businesses. And, there have been many times in my business where I haven't been able to pay team, or I haven't been able to pay my coaches, where I haven't been able to pay for things because I was so obsessed with, I need to always have team and coaches to make more money, because if I fucking dip below 10K months, 20K months, there's 30K month, 15K months, and it means that my work doesn't work, and I'm not meant for it, and it was just a one-time fluke, and I just got lucky, and it's never going to happen again. We need to be willing to let go of all of that, because the shame kills. It is deadly. It is insidious, and especially around money and sex, right? But we're obviously talking about money here. So it can create this sense of, I'm so unworthy and so lowly that I don't even want to be alive anymore. And, I've had those moments in my journey where it's like, I feel so low because my income is so low, or I'm not making enough money, or, I've had to rely on my partner, or back in the day when I'd have to ask my parents for money, things like that. Like, I would just feel so low. And so it impacted how I saw myself. It impacted how I treated myself. It impacted what I would let myself receive or not. And so we have to transmute this shame into power, into eros, into aliveness. You have to choose that aliveness, because the shame will convince you that who you are at your core is bad and wrong, and that's why this is happening. And again, it's a recalibration, not a regression. You're being positioned, not punished. So coming into right relationship with this means pulling up a seat at the table for our shame and being willing to dance with the shame, make love to the shame, fuck the shame, get off on the shame, be with the shame, but let it move through your body. Because if you keep that shame locked away, it is going to cause you to hide. You are going to feel like you are not worthy of being hired or paid, even if your work isn't teaching money. You'll feel like, well, I was making money and now I'm not, therefore I'm just not worthy of receiving anymore. If people knew what were going on, they're not going to hire me anymore. I'm just so fucking sick of all of it. So fucking sick of powerful women, myself included at times, where it's like, we will let this shame win. We will let the stories inside of our heads, we will let our egos win. Our egos who are self-flogging and self-flagellating, beating the shit out of us internally. And I stand for you and your power and this big thing inside of you that you are here to create, even if you can't see it yet. But I'm telling you that if you can come into a right relationship with what this period of time, whether it lasts 1 month or 1 week or a year or however long, that it is actually serving you, and you get to have all your feelings. You get to have your pity party. You get to be bratty. You get to feel all the fucking feelings, because that's part of it. It's not about bypassing. These times that I'm talking about are not about bypassing. It's about breaking down all the fucking illusions that you have fallen for. All the ways in which you are still striving for something that is not true or aligned for you. So I obviously still want to make $1 million. I want to have $1 million company. And what I've learned going through that whole void and having these income dips is that the $1 million will never be more powerful than me. It will never be put on a pedestal above me. It is something that is inevitable. It is something I don't need to rush or pressure or force. I don't force, rush, or pressure my orgasms or my money anymore. It means nothing about me that I'm not there yet. It means nothing about you that you're not there yet. Like, we have to start trusting our journeys and trusting ourselves. And I get that it's frustrating when you see all these coaches who have their fucking champagne and their balloons, and I'm not hating on them, that's their thing, and who are making 100K months, $1 million months, multi-million-dollar months, and you're just like, what the fuck? When will it be my turn? We have to be willing to keep trusting our soul, trusting our journey. And yes, noticing if there's sabotage going on and really understanding how to support your nervous system during this time is so important, because you can easily slip into a freeze response or a fawn response. You can easily start to shut down and go into passive possum mode where you're like, doesn't even matter if I get out of bed. But during this time, there can be periods where you do need to rest more, because you're so used to that like feast or famine, that up and move and go and production, and the stress hormones that come from constantly being on and constantly moving forward and making more money, and the stress of it all, right? Like being in survival mode. And I talk more about that. I have 2 things that I want to invite you to. One is if you're like, okay, I really need to release shame around money. I need to release stress and worry around money. I really need to resource safety from within. And I want money to feel pleasurable and hot and sexy and fun again. Not so fucking serious. Then I recommend signing up for my More Money, Less Stress Masterclass, because you'll learn about my Sexy Money Codes program, which is all about all of that. It's also about stepping into consistent cash months, but everything that I teach in Sexy Money Codes is what I use to get myself through this fucking void. So it's my work, right? And you have your work. What are the things that got you there, right? And this is another piece I want to share, and then I'll tell you about the other thing that I want to invite you to, if that's more your vibe, is the income dip, the void, whatever you want to call it, is calling you deeper. It's calling you home. It is about soul. It is about your body. It is about your eros. It is about your aliveness. It is about lightness, like finding lightness in life again, because shit gets so heavy and hard. And when money starts to feel that way, it's like everything is so serious. Business is so serious. This is where we have to look at, where am I clinging? What am I clutching onto? What am I trying to force? It's like trying to force an orgasm and you're pressing so hard on your clitoris with the vibrator and you're like holding your breath and everything is clenched. We have to soften and open the body. And this is why I do so much somatic and body work to support the flow, right? So that we can experience flow and we can actually trust and surrender this period of time and see it as valuable, see it as medicine, see it as something that is serving you and benefiting you. No, you don't need to stay there longer than necessary, but there's no saying like, oh, your income dip is only going to last 2 weeks or 3 months or a year. Like, everyone is different and there are going to be different things in that for you, and there are different factors, but contraction and expansion are both necessary. Contraction is just as beneficial as expansion. Like, think about breath and birth and orgasm. All things that have a balance between expansion and contraction. When I had my daughter, the contraction was what allowed expansion. Like, I gave birth downstairs in my bathtub, and I remember the feeling, like, I used to call my contraction surges, and I don't have a problem with the word contraction, but I just chose to call it a surge because that's what I believe a contraction is it's a fucking launching pad. While you're in it, it feels like you're just sitting here twiddling your fucking thumbs, not doing anything. And you might even be trying things and you're like, well, it's not working. I'm trying, it's not working. Another door slammed in my face, another thing not working out, things failing. Everything just feels like it's a fucking mess. It feels like everything is an epic failure. And oftentimes it's because, again, you're looking in that rear view mirror. You're trying to go back to the comfy old sweater that doesn't fit anymore, but it's so familiar. And you're trying to do things the way that you always knew, right? But again, there's a new way that you're being asked to show up, to be in your posture, to move, and to become and be. And it's all inside of you. But, while I was giving birth to my daughter, the contractions were the only reason she was able to come out. Like, think about if we gave birth and we never had contractions. Obviously, I know not everyone's birth ends up the way that mine did, but it's like the contraction is a surge of energy that is opening. It's opening and expanding the cervix for the baby to come down and out. And there's a natural energy that's just going down and out, right? So sometimes in this void or these contractions or these income dips, it feels like we are pushing a car uphill on a hot summer day. And the invitation during this time is to stop doing that. And instead, imagine that there's a current and it's like a lazy river. And you get to get on a float or a raft, whatever, a boat, and that current gets to carry you. That's the type of energy that this dip, this void offers to you, is no longer forcing things uphill, but letting there be a natural current carrying you, or even thinking about rolling a snowball, right? And that momentum of it going downhill, gathering volume, gathering speed, getting bigger, getting faster. So in breath, there's a contraction, there's an expansion. When you inhale, your belly expands. When you exhale, everything contracts in. Inhale, it expands down and up. Exhale, it contracts back in naturally. Orgasm is also the contraction and expansion of the pelvic floor muscles, of the uterus, right? So we have to stop seeing contraction as bad and wrong, and we have to stop fearing it. And I know why we fear it, because contraction brings death. And I mean, your contraction may have literal death involved, but it's about that like spiritual death, the death of the ego, because nothing will kill your ego faster or be a bigger ego death than having to sit with the fact that you were making this much money and now you're making this. Like, especially when we're so attached to the amount of money that we were making before, and we started to wrap up our safety and our sense of self and our worthiness and whether we get to have opportunities, whether people will hire us, respect us, value us. When all of that gets tangled up with your money and your success and your production and your results, that's where it becomes really, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good and it doesn't serve you. So contraction is just as necessary as expansion. And when we fear contraction, we actually contract. We fear and we push and we repress and we deny and we avoid. So for me, the priestess within me, the witch within me is now just like, yes, contraction is uncomfortable. Yes, I'm having so many ego deaths over the past several years. But also, I have never felt more embodied. I've never felt more powerful. I've never felt more certain. I've never felt more alive. I've never felt more regulated and safe within. Not conditional and circumstantial on my external circumstances. It doesn't matter how many sales I make. It doesn't matter how much money comes in because I know who I am. I know what I'm meant for. I know what I'm here to create to a degree. There's still a lot that's yet to be revealed. I'm only 34, so it's like there's a lot of things that get to be surprised and delighted and mysterious for now, but it's like you can have this relationship to like, okay, things aren't flowing. Things have come to a screeching halt or things are dipping. Where can I open to this flow of safety, this flow of eros, this flow of what is already here? Because sometimes we're not given more until we appreciate what we've already created, until we appreciate what's here. Because oftentimes, and I will speak to this myself, when I got to 6 figures, it was almost like by the time I got there, it wasn't enough anymore because everybody else is making $1 million a year. A lot of other people are making $1 million a month, and here I am just making a measly 6 figures, which not true, right? But that's where my mindset was at the time. And that shit got fucking exercised out of me during my void and my financial dips. There are very few remnants left within me that have any kind of attachment or meaning to how many sales I make, how many likes I get, how much money I make. Obviously, I'm human, so that stuff will pop up occasionally, but it's just like, it used to be everything that I would always look at, like, oh, how much money did I wake up to? And that would determine my mood. It would determine how safe I feel. It would determine the actions I took. Because if there wasn't enough, I would go into scarcity and I would start hustling, which is another thing that we detangle in the More Money, Less Stress Masterclass. So I have a couple of questions that were submitted to me that I'm going to talk about in a minute, but the other piece, so I invited you to my More Money, Less Stress Masterclass. It's a 2-hour class. If you have certain money patterns that are repeating, if you're in that dip and you're feeling a lot of shame, a lot of like survival mode, a lot of insecurity, that'll be a really powerful masterclass for you. I also have a free 5-day Telegram training that I'm going to do starting in early September called All Eyes on Me. And it's really about stepping into being seen. It's not about audience size. It's not about following trends. It's not about really anything external to you. Obviously, I know that you want to make more money, you want to make more sales, and you want to know that the great work that you're creating is being seen and recognized. So if you feel like that's not happening, All Eyes on Me is for you. And you're going to get 5 days in a Telegram group, actually a little bit longer because we'll have 3 days of foreplay work to get all turned on by it. But we're going to journey together, and there will be an audio lesson every day for those 5 days. And it's just going to be really powerful. If you're like, I'm ready to step into this all eyes on me energy, and I want to be seen, and I want to be recognized, and I want to open back up to this flow of money and sales, but also seeing yourself in a completely different way, definitely sign up for that. You can comment money class, one word, for the More Money, Less Stress Masterclass, or you can comment spotlight for All Eyes on Me. And why not sign up for both, and you can get it handled from all directions. So the first question I got was, how do you allow your mind and body to handle days when income gets low without letting it destroy you? So for me, it comes back to the work that I do. You are going to have your own work that you do, and I also obviously recommend my work, but the tools that you use, right, that are yours to use, like there are things that you might believe in and stand for, the more you lean into the tools that work for you, whether they're your own or they're someone else's or it's a mix, right? Like, what are the things that help you come back into your power, that help you regulate your nervous system, not just changing your mindset. Yes, your thoughts and beliefs are important. I'm not against mindset work. I love journaling. I love, affirmations and stuff, but I also know how to do them effectively, which I also talk about in More Money, Less Stress. And I know that what matters most is embodiment, the somatics. Am I penetrating enough to go deep enough into my nervous system and my body? So what are the things that get you out of your mind and out of your ego and help you connect to your soul, to your body, to your eros, and help you regulate your nervous system? So for me, I teach a lot of somatic embodied practices like breath work and visualizations and things that involve the body, and kink practices that allow me to kind of get off on certain patterns. But it's a lot of the same stuff that I do, right? Is like speaking things out loud, my speaking practice, my like movement and dance, connecting to my eroticism, self-pleasure, and sex magic. Like I kind of have like my core practices that I always come back to. Sometimes I do I love mirror work and EFT, tapping, but it's really just like if I can do breath work and move my body and like breathe my erotic energy through me, and then maybe move into like a little visualization, sex magic, and then do a speaking practice from there. And especially when I get out in nature and I take my walks, getting into pleasure, like those are things that always do it for me. And I obviously have other practices that help me integrate certain things, which I also teach in Sexy Money Codes. But for me, it's like your mind wants to attack you because it wants to keep you small and safe. And the income dip, again, is a portal to your power. It is a call to deepen and descend and rise from that descension more embodied, more powerful, more alive, more connected to who you are, like strip teased away from all the shit that wasn't yours. And your ego knows this. Your ego is telling you that the income dip or the void is happening because you're a piece of shit, or it's going to give you all these seductive stories. But what's actually happening, like I said, is that this is a recalibration. You are being positioned for something greater. It is actually a portal and initiation into becoming who you are here to be, so that you can hold what you're here to hold and create what you're here to create and receive what you're here to receive and serve the way that you're here to serve. That's what it is. The income dip isn't because something's wrong with you or people don't want your work anymore, your work doesn't work. No. It's because there's a deeper alignment happening beneath the surface. And your ego knows that. And it also knows that this is the perfect time to dominate you and attack you and make you feel like shit, so that you don't say yes to the initiation. Because if you don't say yes to the initiation, you just stay small and comfortable and safe, and you can hide. You'll feel like shit about where your money is, but you'll still be safe and small. So for me, it's recognizing like, whoa, if I'm experiencing this, there's something really great and deep and wide happening right now. And if my mind is being an extra fucking bitch to me that day, it's because this matters. It's because this portal, not that the dip matters or means something in that way, like it means something bad about you, but it matters in terms of like, this is a powerful and pivotal moment in time. It matters in that way. It matters that you show up. It matters that you keep going. It matters that you do the inner work to show up, to move through it, to let it move you. Because what you'll also find is that whatever's waiting for you on the other side, you're not just forcing it. It is moving you. It is pulling you. It is coming to you, all of it. But there's something deeper that wants to move you and be moved by you, instead of just being motivated and moved by metrics and likes and how much money you're making. Can you be moved by something greater and deeper than you, by your soul, by your eros, by the divine, by this message, this transmission, this offering, this body of work, this movement, this mission? Let that move you, because it's so much bigger and deeper than you could have imagined. And that's why it can be really scary too. So this is how I prevent destruction, is I protect my peace and I preserve my practices. Like it's a priority during this time, is like, yes, I'm going to let myself enjoy the simple pleasures of life. You know, things got really simple for me during that time. And sometimes I wasn't meant to do the practices. Sometimes it was about go sit naked in the sun and eat a bowl of cherries, or go play in the yard with your kid, like that type of stuff, right? But also, this is a refinement of, can you deepen your own craft? Can you connect to the practices that work for you? Can you do the things every day that connect you to your power, to your safety, to your regulation, and to your mission? You know, this is why in the morning, the first thing I do when I wake up is I try to drop into this energy. It doesn't happen every day, especially as I move closer to bleeding. I kind of just like wake up and I'm like, fuck. But, you know, I try to wake up and kind of tap into like, oh, I'm a woman running a $1 million company, and sales came in while I was asleep, and I impacted so many women while I was asleep. And I just try to get into that energy, very playful, very light, right? And then I go and I have an altar that's devoted to my movement, which is this energy of helping women really take their erotic and financial power into their own hands. There's layers to it, right? But that's really what I'm here for, is I want women fully fucking alive. I want women to be the most alive, expressed, turned on, powerful version of themselves. I want women to just be in their power with money and sex. At the end of the day, that's really what it's about, is eros, aliveness, power. It's all so connected. I want women to be so fucking alive that they feel it coursing through them. So, and free. I want women to be free. I want women to be alive. I want women to be magnetic and expressed and safe within themselves, not safe within some like little hiding way of like, this is how I have to be palatable to be safe. I mean, safe within yourself, safe to reside and exist in your power. So I sit in front of my altar, I light the candles, I might pull a card, I have a mirror because I like to also connect with myself in the mirror because it really helps me see myself. And then I'll start moving into my embodiment. Sometimes the practices are more for pleasure and eroticism. There's really no focus. I'm not dedicating and devoting all my practices to money or to clients or to getting or manifesting something. And sometimes they are, because I'm like, okay, I'm working through a new level. Let's help me create safety around this. So there's that piece where it's like, okay, let me get into my body, let me regulate my nervous system, let me connect to my power. And I have practices for me that are like triple threats, where it's like, if I do this one practice, it's going to kind of do all those things together. It's going to help me regulate my nervous system. It's going to help me connect to my power. It's going to get me all turned on and connected to my eros. I'm going to feel connection to my soul. And I'm going to feel like I am already living that life and being that version of myself that I'm being called to become now, and feel it like it's real now. So for me, that's what I do, is just a deep devotion to my practice. And something we're going to talk about inside of All Eyes on Me is really looking at dom and sub dynamics and attention. And, you know, I wrote it down on my phone, I'm trying to remember because it had just come through earlier, and it was like, are you in service from your heart and eros and soul, or are you in service for your ego? Because to me, being in service from our heart and our soul and our eros, which is our aliveness, is like, and I don't mean pure as if you desiring something else is like dirty or bad. I just mean it's like, that's really where it's coming from, right? Is like, oh, it's coming from this version of me, versus, oh, I'm serving today because my ego just wants money, or I just want sales, or I just want attention, which is not bad or wrong. But I have found that for me and many clients and colleagues, that that can be something that actually holds us back from serving more and serving bigger and serving deeper and also receiving more, because we're focused more on our own shit than we are on being of service to the people that we're here to serve. And sometimes that's just where we have to be. Like when I was in this void, I was not really thinking about anybody else but myself because I didn't have the capacity. So just know that your capacity is also being built up during this time, but it's okay to be a little bit more selfish during that time, because you have to let go of all the shit, all the shoulds, and come into right relationship with yourself. The next question, which is a little bit different, but I'm just going to answer it to be of service because I don't feel like it's necessarily about income dips, but tips for holding faith that will get better when you have a 9-to-5. Like, I'm trying to take myself back to when I was in my old job, because I worked for a corporation until February of 2016, and then I've just been running my business since then without another job. Or I got a job, I think in late 2016. I worked at a winery for like 1 season. That was it. So you have to, I feel like it's actually the same answer that I gave to the last one. The same way that we prevent our mind from attacking us is also the same way that we build faith and trust that we are meant for more, that we are set up for more, that we are being positioned for more, is doing practices every day, even if it's only 5 minutes before you go into work or log onto your computer, whatever, right? Like finding those pockets of time in your day where you are in deeper devotion to something greater and deeper than just you and your ego. Whether it's you have an altar or you're listening to something that feels good to you, but it's like, I like creating open blank space as well for my soul and eros for whatever this thing is, right? It's a movement, it's a body of work. I don't even fucking know what I'm creating sometimes because it's so much bigger than me. But it's like whatever that thing is that you're here to do. And it has many versions and many iterations. I don't believe that you and I are here to just create one thing. We are creatrixes. We are here to birth and create many, many, many things. But it's like whatever that next big thing is, or that next creation is, that you are here to be of service through, when we create space for it to come through. And we show up with devotion, even on the days where we don't hear it, where we don't feel it, where it's like crickets, like, okay, I'm in a ritual, like, where are you? Tell me what to do. And you're feeling nothing. It's like your fucking spirit guides, your ancestors, everybody's quiet. Like, where are they? Are they all hanging out together, like whispering about you? Like, what the fuck is going on? But that's also a part of this, right? Is like being willing to sit in the silence and not taking the silence as lack of guidance, not taking the silence as punishment, not taking the silence as abandonment, because that's another thing. Ooh, okay, this is hitting a chord, right? Just came up in my throat, is the dip, the contraction, the void, this messy middle, right? Whatever you want to call it, again. Sometimes, actually, I feel like it's a really big piece of it, is also connecting not only to our own soul and our own power, but connecting to something that's deeper and greater than you, outside of you, like whatever you want to call it, goddess, God, the divine, universe, mother nature, your angels, your guides, your ancestors, right? Source, like connecting to this part of you that is in a web with something that's much bigger than you. Because sometimes when we're in these spaces where things are really not going the way that they were before, is we start to feel like we got abandoned by the goddess, abandoned by the divine, abandoned by the universe, right? Like, oh, you've just moved on to her over there and she's having $1 million months and living her life, but like, you just like, I can't hear you, I can't feel you, I'm writing letters to the goddess and she's not fucking responding. Like, I haven't heard from her in several days. She's not sending me signs. I'm not seeing red cardinals or butterflies or angel numbers. Like, how you hold yourself through this quote unquote silence and this is getting quite spiritual and soulful here, but that's also who I am. Like, I'm a fucking priestess and witch, and this is some of the deep shit that we do behind the scenes. But it's true, right? Is like when you feel like your soul isn't communicating with you, when you feel like if there's something bigger than you that you believe in that isn't communicating with you, and you're just like, okay, is this thing on? Like, I'm literally showing up. Is anybody fucking listening? Whether it's your audience or the people you're here to speak to, or you're trying to connect into, you know, maybe you had a spiritual practice where it's like, yes, I'm connected to this goddess or this deity or this archetype or this whatever, and then it's like silence. And I'm going to let you sit there for a second, because I spent so much of that void in silence. And I stopped listening to personal development because I don't feel like the void and the dips are necessarily, you have to go get a new certification or you have to go outside of you and, you know, learn something new. It's really a deep internal experience. You're being asked to go inward and down and in. It is a dissension so that you can find your power within, right? In your heart, in your pussy, in your womb, like wherever. And so we're so used to, we don't like sitting in the discomfort of the silence. We don't like sitting in the discomfort of feeling like we've been abandoned, right? Or the answer is not right there in front of us because it's uncomfortable. Because we're so used to kind of having that dopamine hit of like, oh, someone just bought and that created this like energy for me and now I can follow that. But when it's just you with yourself and you're being called to go deeper within your own self and also to strengthen your spiritual or soulful practice or divine feminine practice, whatever that you want to call it, learning to sit in that discomfort and not mistake it for abandonment, not mistake it for punishment, not mistake it for anything other than just you being loved exactly as you are and being held. It's almost like being in the womb again, and the only sound could be a heartbeat. You know, like just that dark, warm, enveloped feeling. And so it can be quite isolating. It can feel very like, oh, the goddess just abandoned me, or the divine abandoned me, or I'm all alone, or where are my ancestors or my guides? That's not what's happening. It's really for you to have a deeper level of faith and trust and surrender that you are provided for, that you are safe, that you are loved, that you are taken care of, and that you are being guided. Because the truth is that it might feel like you're in a winter season, but just like in winter, beneath the surface, there are things happening. Behind the scenes, behind the red velvet curtain, there's shit going on that you could never have even dreamed of. And what if you're being prepared for something that's even better than your ego could have created? And I believe that that's true, is that you are being positioned and postured for something that is going to blow your fucking mind. And I was listening to this woman. Her name is Jess from Bahati Life, and it was like a really old video of hers. I think it was from like 7 months ago, and she was talking about like a drought or whatever, like a drought where you feel like things aren't coming. And she said something about like multiplicity, right? Like seeing that energy of when you come out on the other side, it's not just like one thing that's going to happen, but it's things being multiplied. And they're not going to be multiplied the way that you did them originally. This is what's coming through for me now, is like the way that you were doing things is not the way you're being asked to do what's next. Which is why we go through this period of like, okay, let's get rid of the old beliefs from the coaching industry. Let's detach money from our worth, money from our value, money from our safety, money from our happiness, money from fulfillment, and just fucking enjoy and have fun. And like, yes, we love money, but we get to have a healthy, secure, loving relationship with money when the lack of money no longer means something about us. So I got a little off topic, but you know, tips for holding faith that'll get better when you're in a 9-to-5 is really just like still being able to sit in that space of the discomfort and even get off on it a little bit, of like knowing that even if it feels like you can't see or you can't feel, you can't imagine the day where you're gonna hand in your 2 weeks notice and walk away, knowing that that is inevitable, knowing that you are meant for something so much bigger and so much deeper than, you know, being in that 9 to 5. And there are some people who will be satisfied with just being in a 9 to 5, but I don't feel like those are my people, and there's nothing wrong with that. But part of like me stepping into the all eyes on me energy is being willing to be seen by powerful women leaders who are like, I would never be satisfied with a 9 to 5, because I fucking wouldn't. I'm not above those people. It's not that I'm better. It's not that we're better than them. It's just that we are here to lead something so much bigger and deeper than working for someone else. So I feel like I've been talking a lot. This was a pretty long live. I would love to know one takeaway. And again, sign up for More Money, Less Stress. That will help you with any of the stress or emotional drama. And if you're like, I am ready to release the shame and turn it into power and magnetism, sign up for All Eyes on Me. They're both free. So share one takeaway in the comments, or if it feels tender, or you just want to like send it to me in a DM. My DMs are open. I'd love to hear your stories. I'd love to hear what you're taking away from this. What's something that stood out for you that you're like, this is the thing. All right, I'm sending you so much love. Bye.